Welcome back to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. I'm your host, Greg Banks. Thanks for coming along today. If you've ever wondered what it actually looks like when a Fortune 500 company puts its money where its mouth is for veterans and military spouses, this conversation is going to land. My guest is Dean Robison, U.S. Naval Academy grad, 12-and-a-half-year Marine Corps veteran, and the executive sponsor of Salesforce Veteran Initiatives that the company Forbes just named the #1 best employer for veterans in America for the second year running. Dean and I get practical about a lot here. Co-founding VetForce and growing it to 6,800 veterans globally, the over 87,000 strong Salesforce military ecosystem, and the spouse program he's most passionate about. Mission Force, Salesforce's purpose-built defense platform, and the $5.6 billion Army contract behind it, and why veteran hiring should be a talent strategy, not philanthropy. Looking forward to this one. Let's get into it. All right, we have a great opportunity for our guest on our show today. This is an exciting day for me. Dean Robison with Salesforce. I get a lot of titles, a lot of experiences. We'll unpack that as we go today. But Dean, thank you so much for making time to come on Serious Talk, the Military Minute.
Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate it. Good to be here.
Awesome. We had the pleasure of meeting Dean at the Salesforce Military AI Summit back in March with a lot of other impressive folks. And I just could not resist the temptation to get Dean here. One of the stats that we'll get to today, Salesforce was named at the end of last year the #1 best employer for veterans in America by Forbes magazine.
Yeah. And actually now that's 2 years in a row we've had that distinction. So we're trying again this year. That's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So of all of the things as to why I have you here, our goal on this show is to find programs that are doing things for our veterans and mil spouse communities. And what better stat to throw out there than you're voted #1 in the nation. That is a hell of a stat. Man, we can't thank you enough. Salesforce changed my life. We can have that conversation offline, but what you guys are doing for the military, I'll say y'all truly put your money where your mouth is when it comes to giving back. And this is a remarkable thing. I'm really proud to see the efforts that you've championed here. Little background on Dean. I don't know what he does in his spare time, but has a bachelor's of science in systems engineering that he received from the U.S. Naval Academy. Served 12-and-a-half years in the U.S. Marine Corps. Has spent a little over 15 years at Salesforce, had a pretty long hiatus and a break, and then came back, but is currently serving as the Office of the Chief Operating and Financial Officer. You've worked in conjunction with partnerships with VetForce Alliance. This is a partnership with Accenture and Federal Services and Prudential to commit to interviews for hiring program completers. Hiring our heroes, which we talk about here an awful lot, had an integral part of setting up some of the 𝗂𝗶𝗿𝗄𝘆 fellowships and Military Spouse Career Accelerator. Everybody knows about the wonderful value 𝗂𝗄𝘆 brings to the community, so great to see you guys working with them. Co-built the VA benefits for veteran training module. This is a work with the Department of the VA. And also work with joining forces. This is a pledge-free training, and I had to update the stat because from 2021, the target was, I think we said 37,000, something like that. You said the current number you're aiming at is 87, and if velocity and momentum says anything, you're on track to be above 90,000 people that have gone through this program by the end of this year.
That's exactly right.
You currently serve as the executive sponsor of Salesforce Veteran Initiatives, and to take that and lay it with you being the #1 employer of veterans. I mean, I'm not going to say you firsthand take all credit for all those things, but you lead in those efforts. I've seen firsthand what those programs do. So knowing that you're at the helm of that puts us in great confidence of where it's going. And you lead a video series called Executive Conversations. Maybe we'll have time to unpack a little bit about what that is today. Again, I don't know what you do in your spare time. It looks like you have a lot of extra time to squeeze some stuff in. But no, truly a man who has put on the uniform. So we thank you first of all things for the services you offer to our nation. Thank you, Dean.
Appreciate it.
I know your family's sacrifice. We could do episodes for weeks probably on what that journey looked like in and of itself. But to kind of kick us off, I'd love to hear a little bit about why you chose the Marine Corps. What are some things as you sit here now looking back on all the things you've done in your career? There's certainly things you attribute to skills and just intuitions, if you will, that you learned through your time of service. But tell me a little bit about your time in uniform.
Yeah, appreciate that. So I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, a small town called Norwich. Didn't have a lot of opportunities growing up. So it was either going to be an athletic scholarship, an academic scholarship, or the military to get out of that small town and into something bigger in this world. And then Top Gun came out. And I saw that on the big screen, the original one, way back when. Like, what's that? You know, what's that ring those guys are wearing on their finger when they're playing volleyball there? What's happening there? And so dug around and got myself, I guess, prettied up in such a way, academically, physically, whatever, and was able to get into the Naval Academy. And I thought I wanted to be a pilot. Seeing Tom Cruise flying across the sky. But about 2 weeks into my academy adventure, I really felt a close kinship with the Marines. They're just so squared away and taking care of their people, and that structure of the Marine Corps, or the Marine Corps within the Naval Academy, called me to service. So I pretty much committed all those 4 years to being the best I possibly could be. And it all worked out, and was able to graduate and select Marine Corps.
Yeah, I've had to learn all kinds of vocabulary to have some of these conversations. And one thing I've learned is there's no such thing as a former Marine.
That's right.
What's a Marine? Always a Marine. Good deal. What are some things as you do your job today, which I'm just the evolution of time, no doubt has brought a lot of experience here, but decisions you have to make, leadership decisions, ideas you have for doing things. How do you parallel some of that back to some of your time of service? Are there things that you had to do during the time in uniform that you think just uniquely prepared you for life in the civilian world?
Yeah, I think I would distill it down to 3 things that I've been able to now carry forward into civilian life here. Number one, mission clarity. Now, I've never run a team or been part of a team that didn't know exactly what winning looked like and why it mattered. And even when you get into a nebulous situation in civilian life, what I find getting that clarity, getting very, very focused on that mission clarity right up front helps everybody. So that, I think, is something I've been able to carry forward. Number 2, taking care of people. This is what I really, really liked about the Marine Corps side of things. Not that the Navy didn't do that, but they were kind of oriented on their ships and their systems and things like that. And the Marines were all about their people. That I have very much carried forward today. So not as just a management philosophy, but I kind of feel it's a moral obligation. We got a team and employing them, enriching them, helping them develop their careers, unlocking doors for them to where they can go and meet their full potential. I love that and have now always carried that through. And then the one I think Mark appreciates the most out of me at Salesforce over these years, it's comfort with chaos. Marine Corps definitely provides a lot of that. And civilian life, does too often. And Salesforce has its own special blend of it. So, plans fall apart at the moment contact's made. What survives, I think, is judgment, training, trust, being able to be calm under pressure, no matter what you're being faced with. True out in the battlefield, and then I think it's true in the boardroom.
Definitely. You talking about looking out for people and whatnot, and Top Gun. A lot of imagery comes to my mind, but one of my best friends was a police officer, was killed in the line of duty. And the officers that he served with, we had an anniversary every year after his death for the first 10 years, and they all just kept showing up. And the last thing that most veterans, race car drivers, police officers, the last thing they want to be mindful of is what could happen any given day, but they're aware of it, right? There's no denying it. But that phrase, "I got your six," was something that just resonated. I kept hearing that in this group. And I would imagine you would agree with this, that mission statement of looking after your people while the people you're looking after have your six, which means they're watching your back. The amount of resolve you can have to march forward when somebody's watching your back is a completely different way of operating life than what your average civilian just goes and does. I mean, that look out for self is what we all hear now. And it keeps people from being good teams because they're not focused on the mission of what the team's trying to do. They're looking out for their part of it. And it just breaks down congruency. So I can certainly see where that certainly resonates. Probably an interesting mix of people who have that mission and those who don't, how they learn to operate around one another. But good stuff. Let's jump right into what's going on at Salesforce. We were at the AI Summit, and I know there's been some rebranding over the history of years that Salesforce has been doing military stuff. There's been a lot of different programs, but there's 2 that we want to kind of start by talking about, and that's VetForce and Salesforce Military.
Right.
Again, each of those probably could be their own episode and their own mission statements and their target audience and what they're trying to do. But let's start by kind of defining those and talk about how those programs complement one another.
You bet. I'll start with VetForce because that's what we did start first. I was one of the co-founders way back when. Gentleman by the name of Randy Wooten, a fellow Naval Academy grad, I think an EA-6B pilot, or might have been a bomber pilot type of thing. So he was there. And then, I hate to say this, a West Pointer, Dan Streetman, amazing guy, now the CEO of Tanium. The 3 of us were all kind of staring at each other one day, and asking like, how can we give back? What do we do here? And it isn't like we started VetForce because we had to or we were asked to. I think we all looked around Salesforce and realized there was more of us than anyone knew that wore a uniform at one point. We're still reservists and, we're called to duty or National Guardsmen. And these were veterans who were thriving, but we didn't have that community internally. And we thought about, people leaving the military who couldn't find the door in. We did, and we built the door so others could come in, which then ultimately turned into Salesforce Military. We'll get to that in a moment. But it started as that employee or business resource group where you just had this community where veterans could come together, share sea stories, share lessons learned, not necessarily having to repeat the same mistakes that somebody else did, because you could learn from those mistakes and share and just bring somebody along. I think in the Army, they might call it a battle buddy. You carry somebody along with you to kind of help you out. And we just built that program inside the company to the point where it was a couple hundred, way back when, in I think 2013, 2012, when we kicked that off. We're 6,800 globally right now. And we've got veterans in all sorts of countries all around the world. India, huge, component, the UK, the Netherlands, and definitely here in the good old US of A. So that's VetForce. And any other questions on that one, Greg?
No, you answered the one thing that was initially going to come to mind was it more kind of inward focused when you started it, and then once you had built that community of those people, what the universal thing of people who serve in all branches, the one thing you guys can't seem to shake is giving back, serving.
Right.
The purpose after when you take the uniform off, there's a different type of service, but how do we keep doing that? So the fact that you started internally looking out for each other makes an awful lot of sense. But I can also see you pretty quickly going, all right, we're here with a job. Now what can we do? Can we go find some buddies to bring in? So that, if there's anything less obvious, I don't know what it is, but that's a good way to start it. So yeah, let's go ahead and transition to how Salesforce Military got spun off.
Yeah. So then we said, okay, we've got this amazing little engine humming along inside the company called VetForce. How do we turn that goodness into something that we can now attract more folks in? But even more importantly, for as big as Salesforce was getting, how could we share that with our ecosystem? How could we turn that in so the ecosystem can now thrive and take advantage of all the benefits that you get from both veterans and military spouses, which is a huge component of this for us. So 87,000 members across 5 countries today. 83% of the members of the Salesforce ecosystem report higher career satisfaction than previous civilian careers. The average starting salary of that community is $87,000, 1.6 million projected jobs in the Salesforce economy, additional jobs by 2028. We have the fellows program. You mentioned hiring our heroes, and 115 plus fellows have been through our program. About a 72% conversion rate to those actually being converted to full-time hire. 2 times year-over-year growth in getting this fellowship program up and off the ground. And then 100% of those fellows are like conversion ready and they're hired within 60 days. Like once they come out of that fellowship program, in the 60 days, they've got employment. You mentioned, number one best employer. So we kind of use that because for training them, sometimes we bring them in as well and maybe not share everybody out in the ecosystem.
Right.
So that's a nice little added benefit. And then we feel like bridging the gap, we think can add nearly 15 billion to the US economy over the next decade by getting this employment engine humming. And so that's the motivation. And so this runs the gamut from just amazing programs that we have through Trailhead. So our online community where everybody in Salesforce ecosystem comes in to get trained. And there are specific trails for Salesforce Military, I think 28 as of today, that it's free. Their certifications are free. Like we are really powering them. If they're willing to learn, we've got the capabilities for them to jumpstart a career if they're transitioning out of the military. And then the one I'm most passionate about these days is the military spouse program, because we find with military spouses, they're the most resilient. They're the most adaptable. They need jobs that can transition as they PCS and move from base to base or post to post.
Yep.
And the Salesforce ecosystem provides that kind of flexibility and stability and capability. So it's a very exciting element of the program.
Man, I can't tell you how much that resonates with me. I actually left my last job, 25-year career. I left there to go find a job. I wasn't looking for another career. I just wanted a job where I could have a life and go volunteer, wounded warrior or something. I want to go find a way to give back, but I couldn't do it working 80 hours a week. And I landed here at Sirius and found out that we did almost all of our hiring through Hiring Our Heroes at that time. At that time, we're about 68% of our staff were veterans and military spouses. And we were actively participating. I think we'd been with like the first 5-6 years they were doing fellowships. We participated in every one of them. I'm like, man, this is my day job. Giving back to veterans was something in my heart. It just made sense in 1,000 different ways. But I was completely clueless about military spouses. Just had not hit my radar. Like, yeah, the part of them being, shot around the country and trying to get kids out of this school and in that school and move all their stuff so the veteran can go and do whatever it is they need to do. But the thought of them, military bases are not downtown. They're not generally in metropolises. So no matter what they know, where they are precludes them from being able to do a whole lot.
Exactly.
But this one thing I'll give credit to COVID about making working remote cool is that opened a whole different door. And it had never dawned on me how many challenges military spouses face. And I don't take credit for this, but in coming here, we have several military spouses that work here. And I've been able to mentor several of them, manage quite a few of them. And the first one that I mentored and they came on full time, their husband's been able to transition out, find a job or whatever. And I'm not saying he left, got a job, moved on because he didn't have to re-up and take hazard pay and all that kind of stuff, but he was able to.
Sure.
And again, what a blessing in my life to say, if there's any way in the world we can contribute to military families, let's just go at it that way. And if the spouse can find meaningful employment and good money as PCSs go on, then that allows that service member to open the door of, I don't have to re-up. I can if I want, but I don't have to. So, man, what a remarkable thing. And then you flip the towel on that with Salesforce being who you are, doing what you do. What an incredible thing just to find people, train them, and give back to them. But when you can hire them and actually bring them in, like, I'm not just giving you skills, I'm giving you a place to apply them. That's a whole nother kind of awesome. So, man, whoever, those three of you that got locked in that room together, I hope they still give y'all coffee breaks and stuff to go come up with stuff, because I just simply can't think of a better idea.
Absolutely. And one other thing I'll just add, Greg, it does also turn into a full circle moment for us as well, because as a platform for continued service, these veterans and military spouses at Salesforce, they build our products, the AI technologies, the public sector solutions that go right back to serving the defense community they came from. So often they're swapping one uniform or one badge for another to go right back and give back in these amazing solutions that we can offer the public sector.
That's going to segue to our next part of the conversation. But before we go there, I want to pause for just a second. A lot of what you said, I would imagine our audience could resonate with. Let's just say our civilian part of our audience it's just a good thing to do for what veterans have given to our nation. It's a good thing. I think everybody will agree on this, to give back, train them, give them skills, help them navigate wherever they want to go, free of charge, when and where and all possible. All that's great and absolutely a minimum right thing we should be doing. What we've seen here at Sirius, what I know you're going to say y'all have seen there at Salesforce, and what many other companies that have drank the Kool-Aid have found is this ain't just the right thing. This is a smart thing to do.
That's
so
right.
When you think about the people you're trusting with this stuff, one thing we hear all the time from veterans is they look over their time of service, whether it's 4 years or 24 years, and they try to translate it into something, stick on a resume. And there's just not a glossary of terms that really translates very well. But if you look back at those experiences of taking stuff with the skills you said that you use today that you learned in the military, that I can have just monsoons of information coming at me. And that alone doesn't scare me. I'm comfortable in the chaos, but you're also able to pull from that the things that matter and stay on focus with the mission. There's not a business out there that doesn't need that.
That's
small,
right.
medium, or large, right? I mean, that's just, you need somebody that's not shaking in their boots because it's Friday afternoon, the bank account's a little bit low to make payroll. That's just Murphy. That just shows up. They call them growing pains for a reason. So that's incredible. But you said something in your last statement there that opens the door for the next part of our conversation. We talked about VetForce and Salesforce Military. We just had Tom House on in December. We had the summit in March. I just re-interviewed Tom last week to recap the summit and talk about next year's. That episode will come out week after next. So it's going to talk about that and why that conference was so important and some things that we're seeing in the VSO community, this kind of team of team things. It's not 40,000 independent working VSOs. We're starting to see some relationships form between them so they can complement one another.
That's right.
I think this is an Army term, but I know you'll get it as this force multiplier. If you can do X and I can do Y, the sum of what we can do together is greater than these individual representation of what we can do. The next thing I want to talk about, we heard about this at the summit's Mission Force. So you just alluded to these folks that have served, have learned skills. They're now employees at Salesforce and they're building things. And now your former employers becoming your customer.
That's right.
Let's talk about Mission Force. What is that? I know there's a lot of things under the hood there, but the things that you can share, let's open that can of worms.
Yeah, absolutely. So Salesforce has been a trusted partner of the U.S. federal government for more than 20 years now, supporting the VA, Army, Navy, Air Force, the Small Business Administration, Department of Energy, NASA, we're all in our ranks. Mission Force is what we have now built to take that to the next level. It's a holistic platform, I would say purpose-built for defense, national security organizations, FEMA, disaster relief kind of capabilities, that type of expertise and capability to help them extend their workforce, increase their IT operational efficiency, the systems and the tools, enhance productivity, world of AI, create decision advantages. So with all the data, you have options and selections and being able to, formulate or recommendations on which one to go with. And then trust is one of our 5 core values. So safeguarding sensitive data, right? Salesforce is absolutely built and predicated on that. So the full power of Salesforce, and you said, purpose built for the mission.
We'll let people marinate on that for just a second. There's a lot that goes into that. Like I've been a part of the ecosystem for going on 16 years now. And in a large company that had 9 business units, we actually had the org that I managed, we had federal requirements that one business couldn't see the other, if that makes any kind of sense. That's just the world we lived in. And the ability with clicks, not code, to set that up. Yeah, it's one org. So there are people, as an admin, could see everything. But business unit wise, I was able to very easily isolate and prove that isolation was protected. And that's just inside the org, not counting all that you guys go to do to keep the orgs themselves safe. But companies out there, I think one thing we've been talking about an awful lot on the show is private equity and the impact it's having on communities out there, that they're out just, buying up 10, 12, 15 brands and making this conglomerate and whatnot, and trying to take a lot of dismembered data, different business units, and try and bring them together. And now you've got a small team effectively running businesses they didn't build, they don't know anything about, but that's right. Things like Data 360. A lot of parts of your ecosystem are coming together. So I don't think it's an accident. I'm a little smarter than that.
That's
than
right.
Some of you guys, but in what you have built over multiple decades of building trust, of creating an environment that's not a bunch of programmers in a room that when they leave, the ability to support that program walks out with them a lot of times. What you guys have built here is truly a thing that we can transfer and carry generation to generation. The cost of ownership, setting the license cost aside, the cost of ownership is one of the more efficient things I've ever seen. So I give you a lot of credit to what you've done there, but to get to this place where you can look Uncle Sam straight in the eye with trust and these pillars, and we'll unpack what those pillars are in a minute, what that means and why that's important.
Right.
But yeah, I knew about the government that y'all made a big headline with your contract, I think with the Army last year.
Absolutely.
Over the next 10 years. But when you start thinking about FEMA and all these other things, I've been a part of some disaster relief over my time. And to think about a way to centralize that stuff, you've got an app on your phone. You've got applications made for tracking what people are doing and where they're at. And did you start? Did you finish? We do a lot of field service work here, and that's probably not what FEMA uses necessarily, but the methodology of those things translates, right? It makes an awful lot of sense why it's so useful. Great. Unpack those pillars under Mission Force a little bit. I think that'll resonate a lot with.
So, 5 core pillars, extending the workforce, number 1. So AI and automation, helping these agencies, so not just people labor, but now our agent labor, right, that we can bring to bear to do more with the existing personnel that you have. We all pay taxes. We want those tax dollars to stretch. So this is a great way to do that with AI and agents. IT operational efficiency. So it replaces those fragmented legacy systems. Gosh, when I was wearing that uniform way back when, were they antiquated? And I don't think a lot has been updated yet, but we're getting there, right? So replacing those fragmented legacy systems with that unified connected platform where you see the right data, it's available at the edge, where you need it. That's something that's very, very exciting and really what we're focusing on and trying to bring to bear. Enhancing productivity. So streamlining the workflows. How many forms have you had to fill out in triplicate in your life, in an automated way? And, the pink copy goes that way, the green copy goes that way. Come on. We're in the next era here. So let's modernize and bring that forward. And it just reduces that administrative burden on our government workers where they could be doing more effective things than chasing that piece of paper that got lost, in a mailroom somewhere. Creating decision advantages. So the AI-powered analytics, all of this data. Name an organization outside the federal government that has more data at its fingertips, but let's harness that data. Let's use that data, giving leaders better information faster, built on all the successes that we've had in the past. Let's carry that forward into the future. And then, you hit on it with trust, with safeguarding the sensitive data. So our government cloud, it's a secure environment built for those public sector demands. And it's just going to increase with more and more capability as we get into the secret, the top secret, all of those 3-letter agencies. Stay tuned. More coming.
Yeah. I heard a statement. I was able to attend a gala last night from one of the other VSOs, and the statement was made that one reason our military is so lethal, so effective, is it's a volunteer force. Everybody that's there wants to be there. And you can't understate that. Like, that's really important. This is a Marine making this statement. You'll appreciate this. And what he followed up with was this: the minute that our military can't go and freely serve and do the things they want to do, and then step out of that towards a world that's ready to receive them and help them continue on a mission, the minute that ceases to exist, the volunteer military will cease to exist.
That's right.
People aren't going to go to risk their life for 4, 8, 10, 12, 20 years if after that there's no hope for them. There's no life after the military for them. So I bring that up because I want to go back to the example that was given at the AI Summit talking about Mission Force. I don't know if you remember the example, but it was talking about, and this may be the furthest example from anybody's mind who's listening. I didn't think about that. The example they used in the summit was about somebody going to be PCS, permanent change of station, for those who, that's one acronym I've learned. When you think about somebody picked up from one city or state or even country and shipped somewhere else, what happens when you move your house? A million questions come to mind. And that's just if you go on the other side of town. Imagine going to another country, another state. Imagine you're taking kids with you who are in 3 different schools, all while the service member just lands and then goes to work, and you've got to figure this out. So the example was, well, what if we know where we have stations? What if, imagine a table that's got stations in it, and in that, here's local churches, hospitals, schools, employers, veteran-friendly, you fill in the blank, all these things. If that was somehow cataloged everywhere we have a station, and when you go to pick the station that, I don't know how many times people pick where they want to go, but wherever you're going, when you look at that, if all that information was in your hands, you're going to be a happier person. Or if you're the service member, your spouse is going to be a much happier person because they're not left with a phone book and Google before the internet gets set up to try and figure that stuff out. That's right. Just one example, but this goes to the heart of our service members being happy and satisfied. And those are just, in any organization, least of which the military, a happy person is a much more productive person. Can Absolutely. You stay focused? Can you stay on mission if the home front's being taken care of? And that's as we talk about military spouse and PCS and all those things, I think people begin to understand if we can make that go better, divorce rates go down, suicide rates go down, people willing to stay in and move around the ranks, not necessarily always combat jobs, but move around the ranks. We don't lose that knowledge. We only get better from here.
That's exactly right. I would, so why now? I think there's 3 reasons that this is our moment. Type of thing. So the Department of War, they've declared itself AI first, right? So the demand signal of that example that you just gave, why isn't it an AI agent for that spouse that when they're driving down the road, Loxley Lane in Lawton, Oklahoma, as they're trying to figure out and navigate around Fort Sill, where's the vet? I've got a sick puppy here that they moved me across the country. The dog got sick, and where's my local veterinarian that I can take this sick puppy to, right? That ain't ChatGPT, Claude, all of those capabilities, that's what the civilian world is living and work. Why isn't that tuned and readily accessible, curated, informed in such a way that that military spouse who just PCS'd and is now in a brand new town, why can't we help her navigate that in a little bit more effective way? So that's coming right out of the Department of War. Number 2, you mentioned it, the U.S. Army, they just awarded that $5.6 billion, 10-year contract to use Mission Force. So it's a program of record. It's not a pilot. And it's not necessarily defined how exactly we're going to burn that down, but it's there and it's ready to go. And we're ready to rip through that and provide this value right here, right now. And then, we keep coming back to this number 3. It is the workforce. 87,000 veterans and military spouses are already trained. Like they're already enabled and ready to go. So that becomes that organic adoption driver, inside the very agencies that they came from to get out there and help people, that they just left behind. So we've got that workforce going and it's growing. So I think that's why we're doing
amazing.
this. So the thing
amazing.
I'm most excited, it isn't the contract. It's the people, the veterans and the military spouses we trained through Salesforce Military are now building and deploying Mission Force inside the agencies they came from. And that's that full circle we've been building towards for now over a decade.
Who now they didn't just leave the military and go do something else and start over. They're literally bringing their knowledge and familiarity with the inner workings and systems to help with that ability to set that program up for the Army.
You got it. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people do efficiency. If you're not in IT, you may not appreciate the fact of that. But man, to try, I'm in the consulting industry now, and to go sit down with somebody I don't know and talk about a business I don't know, to try and get them to pull everything out. They're going to talk about what they do every day, but 80% of what they do are things they don't think about, and that's not going to come up. Onion has to be peeled over weeks and months sometimes to get all that stuff out. Now that knowledge is coming in-house to help you be more effective at that. That's awesome, Dean. Again, that we can stay on that for an hour.
Sure.
And these are incredibly powerful things. In 2012, in some ways, seems like a long time ago, but in some ways, it feels like a few minutes ago.
Yes.
You think about 9/11, that was halfway back to that time frame. When you sitting where you sit now, and I think for you to be inside the tech and all the things going on there, but also to have that military hat on that you'll never learn to take off and all that goes in with that. What's your vision? What are the things you think when you think about vet and mil spouses of the future? What's next? You have any other ideas up your sleeve that you're able to share today?
Well, I mean, that military spouse you mentioned who relocates every 2 years actually has a superpower in this environment, this constantly changing world of AI that we're living in right now, right? That person's adaptable. They know how to build networks fast, when they land, motivated, take care of that kid, take care of that dog, right? Type of thing. And if that person's Salesforce certified, person can work remotely, work anywhere the military sends that person, and that family has a good paying salary, $87K plus, coming out of the gate. We just got to make sure that person has access to the training. And that's what we built. We're going to continue to expand that. And I think our challenge is staying on top of this in this AI world. Wow, is it dynamic right now?
Yeah.
And it's daunting. Right? How do we stay on top of that? How do we be relevant as so much is changing around us? So that it makes me nervous. I'm a little spooked by it, but we're up for the challenge. Yeah. We want to make that happen, but that's part of that mission. I'll tell you the other thing. If I could wave my magic wand, the biggest mindset shift I would like to see in corporate America is to stop treating veteran hiring as a feel-good initiative. Mm-hmm. And start treating it as a talent strategy.
Absolutely.
Veterans and military spouses, they bring leadership, resilience, mission focus that most companies spend years trying to train into their people. And it just comes out of the box with us, right? Mm-hmm. So at Salesforce, we're not just hiring them, right? We're putting them at the center of some of our most consequential work with Mission Force, including building the AI solutions that support these agencies that they came from. And that's not just philanthropy, right? I think that's smart business, right? Absolutely. So that's the big mindset shift that I would like anybody listen to you, Greg, these companies that listen to this podcast, veteran talent, military spouse talent, it's awesome.
That's one of the things we're going to start doing next on the show. I'm going to continue to talk to VSOs because I don't think I'll ever have my head wrapped around there's 40,000 of them. They're not all doing transition service. Right. There's so many different things out there that expose areas where, and if company A or B knew about this, even if they didn't quote unquote have a military resource group of any kind, man, we could get on board with that. Like we just got to find a way to get the message out about what each one of these organizations do and whatnot. But I really want to dig in on what you said there with not just the veterans, but the military spouses. We pour an awful lot of money into training our veterans to be effective at what they do. And they can land anywhere in the world and anytime, day or night, language, temperature, seeing them sleeping in the sun in foxholes in the desert with bombs flying overhead, you do what you got to do. And I just don't think people really have a good definition of what your typical military spouse has to. They have to pick up on a moment's notice, walk away from everybody, everything that they know, and go do the same kind of thing. They got to do what they got to do. They got to look after the kids. They got to pack the house up. And you give them at least 3 or 4 days to pack everything they own up before you ship them off somewhere. Their ability to get stuff done, like you said, calm under chaos is also their realm. And
Absolutely.
I work with a bunch of them. I've seen it firsthand, so I couldn't agree with you more. I give you a chance to stand on your soapbox. This is your lasting quote to kind of send the episode off, Dean. I definitely want to have you again in the future because I know there's so many things going on at Salesforce. It feels like with AI, there's more unknown than known. The AI will help us know what it is we don't know yet. But what I've seen happen with AI, I don't see it replacing people. I see it replacing people who refuse to embrace it and figure out how to do it. But the way we talk about it around here at Sirius is it's our helper, right? We got to do our job as X. There are parts of that job I like to do and that are critical and are sensitive, and I need a human in the loop on that stuff. But inevitably, every job out there has got some administrative functions and things like that. Then stuff you just kind of want to hand off. And if an agent can even do half of that without spending another dollar, I just got way more effective. So there's a lot to come there. But if you look back over your 15 plus years at Salesforce and all the things you've done since getting out of the military, what's one kind of takeaway statement or quote you'd like to leave with the audience to kind of inspire them? For those that maybe work with a veteran or military spouse and maybe they can find a new level of appreciation. If they were the company who doesn't have some kind of military hiring program, how could they start that? If they want to get involved with a VSO, what are some inspiring words you can give to them to go get involved? Because this is a very, very meaningful space to put your effort, time, and money.
Yeah. Well, I think about myself and what I had to go through. So, when I was a 20-something captain, Marine Corps, way back when, it's all about executing a mission for and with my Marines, right? Whatever that was. And a lot got thrown at us way back when. When veterans and military spouses, we train through Salesforce Military, go on to build an AI solution for the VA or the Army, they're doing the same thing I did as a Marine captain back then. I might have had a rifle in my hand. Now I got a keyboard in my hand. They've got a keyboard in their hand, type of thing. It's the same thing. They're executing a mission. It's just a different uniform. So that impact is what this is really all about, that they are ready. They just need the skills. They just need the training, need a little bit of direction versus where they might have just come from. They might not have been exposed to this high-tech world that you and I live in. So we get them that exposure. And it's not just about helping that veteran transition or that spouse find employment. It's about making sure their service never actually ends. Like, I don't feel like my service ever actually ended, right? I think it just evolves from one day to the next. And it's constantly, I get up every morning all excited, shot out of a cannon, ready to go, because it's always changing these days. The intellectual curiosity of whatever Anthropic or OpenAI is throwing at us these days is awesome. And then, okay, how do we do even better, at Salesforce? So that gets me going. And I'm hoping what we're now doing for the 87,000 in the community and many, many more to come, hopefully after listening to a podcast like this, that we're able to prove that each and every day and fulfill that promise. So there you go. That's what I would leave you with.
Man, I appreciate it. I think about I know a handful of Marines and they're just different. I know a lot of service members, but Marines are just different. And I can't begin to fathom, probably nobody in the world can, what you guys have seen and what you've had to do. It's and that's probably true of all branches, truth be told. But the way you guys come back and do what you do, like, you show up to do your job, you punch a clock like the rest of us do. But that stick-to-itiveness, that resiliency, as you talk about, it's invaluable. So we drink it here at Sirius. It's I can literally tell the difference between those who served and those who haven't day to day. When you're consulting, like, there's always hard conversations to be had about, burn rate on projects and deadlines moving and all that those are all hard conversations.
Sure.
But I can tell you, in a room, when there's veterans in the room and there's non-veterans in the room, the expression on the face is just different, right? There's calm under chaos, right? They're just different. And I'm guilty. I'm on the non-service side, so I'm guilty, Your Honor. But man, I want to thank you for your service and your family sacrifice. But I want to thank you for what you're doing at Salesforce. Joe Bass, who spoke at the summit, I pulled her aside afterwards, and I told her, I said, no one in this room, nobody in the world who knows who you are would have faulted you if, when you put in your papers as the highest ranking female who'd served in any branch of the military, if you went and bought you a place on the beach, got you an Audible account, and never showed up again. Nobody would blame her for that. She's earned the right to do that.
Absolutely.
But her, like so many else, you guys don't have that in you. The idea of purpose after service is just ingrained, and God bless that he put that in people. I don't think everybody has it. For those of you who have served, it seems like you all, almost all of you do. And man, I just couldn't be more grateful to meet people like you, to see what you're doing. It's at the heart, ultimately, of why I wanted to do the podcast and do the things we do, is I wanted to find a way to give back. And if I can do that through celebrating and spotlighting folks and programs that are doing it, then that's how I'll do it. But I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you for the leadership that's non-military at Salesforce, but because of what you do, you influence them, and it's become ingrained in what Salesforce does. So thank you very, very much, Dean. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Greg.
All the best, sir. Thank you. Well, that's it for today's episode of Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Huge thanks to Dean Robison for the time, the candor, and the leadership behind everything happening at Salesforce for the military community. The line from this episode that's going to stick with me: stop treating veteran hiring as a feel-good initiative and start treating it as a talent strategy. Mission clarity, taking care of people, and comfort with chaos. Those don't need to be trained. They walk in the door. If this episode hit home, share it with one veteran or one military spouse who's staring down a transition. Subscribe wherever you listen, and if you've got a minute, please leave a review. It genuinely helps us put more of these stories in front of the people who need them. To every veteran and every military spouse listening, thank you. Your service, your sacrifice, and your family's sacrifice do not go unseen here. Show notes, links, and resources are in the description. Special thanks, as always, to Jason Fowler for our theme music, Mystery Road. Reach out anytime at SeriousTalk@SeriousSolutions.com. Until next time, take care of yourself. Reach out to get help from one of the over 40,000 VSOs. And reach back. Be sure you bring somebody along with you.